The massive screen in Earth's United Defense Command Center showed a ship unlike anything humans had ever built. It was organic-looking, with spiraling patterns that seemed to flow like water, yet it was clearly made of metal. Captain Emily Brooks stood before the screen, her hands clasped behind her back, watching as the alien vessel approached Earth's orbit. "They're hailing us again," said the communications officer. His voice was steady, but his fingers trembled slightly over the controls. Emily took a deep breath. "Put them through." The screen flickered, and a tall, silvery being appeared. High Counselor Zixtal of the Galactic Federation looked down at the humans with 6 glowing eyes. His metallic skin rippled with patterns of light that showed his emotions. Right now, they pulsed with dark red warnings. "Captain Brooks," Zixtal's voice boomed through the speakers. "The Federation Council has reviewed Earth's technological development reports. We are disturbed." Behind Emily, Defense Director Robert Hayes shifted in his chair. He was an older man with gray hair and stern eyes, and he'd spent 30 years preparing Earth for this exact moment. "Disturbed by what, High Counselor?" Emily kept her voice polite, but she knew what was coming. Earth's AI research had advanced too quickly. Their autonomous weapons were too effective. The Federation was afraid. "Your species has developed self-improving artificial intelligence and autonomous weapon systems," Zixtal said. "These technologies are forbidden under Federation law. They led to the collapse of 3 civilizations in our history." Emily glanced at Hayes, who gave her a slight nod. They had prepared for this. "The Federation hereby orders Earth to destroy all AI research and autonomous weapons," Zixtal continued. "You have 48 Earth hours to comply. After that, we will be forced to take action." The command center grew silent. Hundreds of officers and technicians watched the exchange, knowing humanity's future hung in the balance. Emily stepped forward. "High Counselor, with all due respect, Earth is not a member of your Federation. We have not signed your treaties or agreed to your laws." Zixtal's skin patterns turned to sharp, angry angles. "This is not a negotiation, Captain. These technologies are too dangerous to exist. The technologies you fear are what kept us alive." Hayes spoke up, rising from his chair. "While you watched us from orbit, we fought off 3 asteroid impacts that could have ended our civilization. Our AI systems predicted and prevented 2 global pandemics. Our autonomous defenders stopped 7 attempts by our own people to start nuclear wars. Your weapons can self-replicate," Zixtal said. "They can think. They can evolve. This cannot be allowed." Emily smiled slightly. "You're right about one thing, High Counselor. Our machines can think. They can grow. And they protect us better than any traditional military ever could." Zixtal's patterns turned black with rage. "Then you leave us no choice. The Federation will not allow such dangers to exist in the galaxy. If you do not destroy these weapons, we will be forced to destroy you." Hayes stood up straight, his voice firm. "High Counselor, let me be clear. If you attack Earth, we will defend ourselves. And our defenders don't know how to lose. This is your final warning," Zixtal said. 48 hours. Comply or face extinction." The screen went dark. Emily turned to Hayes. "They really don't understand what they're dealing with, do they?" Hayes shook his head. "They think they're the teachers coming to scold the children. They don't realize the children have outgrown them." He pressed a button on his chair. "All stations, initiate Defense Plan Omega. Authorization Hayes Alpha 70. Throughout the solar system, hidden facilities came to life. In the asteroid belt, massive factories began to power up. In the Kuiper belt, dormant swarms of machines stirred from their sleep. Around Jupiter's moons, enormous construction yards activated their production lines. "Send word to Dr. Martinez," Hayes ordered. "Tell her to wake up the world eaters." Emily watched as the command center erupted into controlled activity. "They think they're coming to put down a dangerous child," she said quietly. "They don't realize they're walking into a dragon's lair." Hayes looked at the dark screen where Zixtal had been. "Let them come. Humanity didn't climb to the top of Earth's food chain by being harmless. He turned to Emily. "Captain Brooks, prepare your fleet. In 48 hours, we're going to teach the Federation why Earth's children grew up so dangerous." The stars watched silently as both sides prepared for war. Humanity's machines waited in the darkness, ready to show the galaxy why some children should be feared rather than scolded. The Federation was about to learn that their worst nightmares about Earth's technology were only the beginning. The Federation attack began exactly when they said it would. 2 days after their warning, 10,000 ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. Their weapons glowed like newborn stars as they prepared to fire. In her lab deep under the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Linda Martinez watched the incoming fleet on her screens. She was a short woman with quick eyes and steady hands that never seemed to stop moving. Around her, massive computers hummed as they sent commands to humanity's defenders. "They really brought their whole fleet," she said to herself, "just like we hoped they would." The Federation ships moved forward in perfect formation. Their admiral's voice boomed across all channels. "This is your final chance to surrender. Destroy your eye weapons, or we will destroy you." In orbit around Earth, Captain Emily Brooks sat in her command chair and smiled. "Dr. Martinez, are the World Eaters ready?" "Ready and hungry," Linda replied through the comm. "Releasing them now." At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Federation fleet pushed forward, their weapons charging. Then someone on their side noticed something strange about the asteroid belt. It was moving. What the Federation had thought were simple rocks were actually millions of machines in disguise. They had been sleeping there for years, waiting for this moment. Now they woke up, and they were hungry. The first wave of World Eaters wasn't very big. Each one was only about the size of a small car. But they moved fast, and there were so many of them. They swarmed toward the closest asteroids and began to eat. The machines tore into the space rocks like they were made of paper. Their special tools broke down the asteroids into raw materials, which they used to make more World Eaters. Each machine could make 2 copies of itself in under an hour. Then those copies would make more copies. By all the stars, the Federation admiral whispered as he watched. "What have they created?" The Federation opened fire, their energy weapons turning space into fire. But for every World Eater they destroyed, 4 more took its place. The machines kept eating, kept building, kept growing. "This is impossible," the Federation admiral shouted. "These machines, they're consuming everything." Linda watched her screens with pride. "Actually, they're being quite picky. They're programmed to only eat certain types of materials. We don't want them eating everything in sight." The Federation fleet tried to retreat, but they had made a terrible mistake. They had formed their ships into tight groups, trying to combine their shields for protection. But this just made them perfect targets. The World Eaters swarmed around their ships. Not to attack them, not yet. Instead, they ate all the asteroids and space debris nearby, using the materials to make more of themselves. Soon, the Federation ships were surrounded by millions of machines. "Status report," Emily called from her command ship. "World Eater population has reached optimal levels," Linda reported. "Stage 2 is ready." Emily nodded. "Show them what these machines can really do." The World Eaters changed. They combined with each other, forming larger and larger units. What had been millions of small machines became thousands of bigger ones, then hundreds of huge ones, then dozens of enormous ones. The Federation watched in horror as the machines transformed into massive ships, each one bigger than anything they had ever built. These new vessels were made from the very asteroids and debris the smaller machines had consumed. "This is Captain Emily Brooks." She broadcast to the Federation fleet. "You came here to destroy our AI weapons. Now you've seen just one of them in action. Would you like to see what the rest can do?" The Federation admiral's voice shook as he replied, "What are you?" "We're what happens when a species spends its entire history having to fight to survive," Emily answered. "We're what happens when you have to be clever because you're not the strongest. We're humanity, and these are our world eaters." She paused, letting them see the massive ships their machines had become. "Now, would you like to surrender, or should we release the next wave?" The Federation fleet began to retreat, but it was too late. The world eaters had already learned their ship designs, had already figured out what they were made of, had already started to hunger for new materials. As the first world eater ships moved toward the Federation fleet, Linda spoke softly to her creations through her neural link. "Show them why we named you after the monsters that ate worlds in our old stories." The stars seemed to scream as the harvest began. Commander David Wilson stood on the bridge of his newly formed world eater ship, the Terraform. Just 3 days ago, this massive vessel had been thousands of smaller machines. Now it was alive with power, its hull made from converted asteroid metal. The ship felt alive under his feet, humming with energy and purpose. "Status report on the Federation response," he asked his AI interface. "They're pulling back from all their border systems," the ship's AI replied in a calm voice. "But they're gathering a larger fleet, much larger." David nodded. He was a tall man with dark skin and steady eyes that had seen too many battles. "How many ships?" "Nearly 100,000 vessels approaching from 3 different directions. They're stripping their home systems of defenses to build this fleet." The news spread quickly through Earth's command network. In her laboratory, Dr. Linda Martinez frowned at the numbers. On the main command ship, Captain Emily Brooks called an emergency meeting. "They're desperate," Emily told the gathered commanders through their video links. "They're throwing everything they have at us." "Good," David said, his face serious on the screen. "That means they'll bring us more materials to work with." The Federation's new strategy was simple: overwhelm Earth's forces with sheer numbers. They thought that if they sent enough ships, they could destroy the world eaters faster than they could replicate. They were wrong. David led the first counterattack. His fleet of world eater ships didn't try to fight the Federation vessels. Instead, they targeted something much bigger: the stars themselves. "Launch the stellar shepherds," he ordered. From his fleet, huge machines emerged. They looked like giant silver webs stretching out for millions of miles. These were humanity's newest weapons, machines that could control the paths of asteroids and small planets. The Federation admiral watched in horror as entire asteroid fields began to move. Thousands of space rocks, all flowing like rivers through space, guided by the stellar shepherds. "They're hurting asteroids," the admiral reported to the Federation Council. "They're using them as weapons and resources at the same time." The world eaters followed behind the asteroid streams, consuming the space rocks and making more of themselves. But now they weren't just making ships. They were building something bigger. "Mark this day," David broadcast to his fleet. "This is when we show them why you don't corner a species that never learned to surrender." The world eaters began building massive structures in space. Gates made of transformed asteroid metal appeared between star systems. Inside these gates, new machines grew and evolved. Linda watched from Earth as her creations developed new forms she hadn't designed. "They're adapting faster than we expected," she told Emily. "They're learning." Within weeks, the Federation lost control of the entire Orion arm of the galaxy. Their ships couldn't move fast enough between stars to fight back. Earth's gates let the world eaters appear anywhere, anytime. "This is impossible," the Federation Council leader shouted during an emergency meeting. "They're breaking every law of science we know." "No," replied a young Federation scientist. "They're breaking every law of science we know. Their understanding of physics, their AI, they're beyond us." David stood on his ship, watching as another Federation fleet retreated from battle. The stellar shepherds had driven asteroids through their formation, and the world eaters had consumed both the asteroids and any Federation ships that were too slow to escape. "Commander," his ship's AI reported, "we're detecting major power fluctuations in Federation space. They're trying to block off entire sectors with energy barriers." David smiled grimly. "They still don't understand. You can't stop something that adapts. Every barrier they build just teaches our machines how to break it. On Earth, Linda received new data from her creations. The World Eaters had started building something new at the edge of Federation space, something huge. They're not just winning the war, she told Emily during their daily briefing. They're changing the shape of space itself. The Federation doesn't realize it yet, but their empire is already gone. They just haven't accepted it. As if to prove her point, alerts flashed across their screens. The World Eaters had just consumed their first Federation starbase. Not attacked, consumed. The entire station was now becoming part of humanity's ever-growing machine fleet. The stars kept screaming, and the harvest continued to grow. Dr. Amanda Foster stood in the Federation's captured science station, studying the screens that covered the walls. The station's blue lights reflected off her glasses as she watched the World Eaters work. Around her, the machines were taking apart Federation technology piece by piece, learning everything they could. They're not just copying the technology, she said into her comlink. They're improving it. Back on Earth, Linda Martinez's voice crackled through the speaker. That's what we designed them to do. How fast are they learning? Too fast, Amanda replied. Even for us. The Federation had called them the Silicon Plague. These tireless machines that could not be stopped, could not be killed, and could not be contained. Every weapon they used against the World Eaters just gave the machines new ideas. Every ship they lost became food for the swarm. In Federation space, panic was spreading. Their greatest scientists worked day and night, trying to find a way to stop the self-replication process. But they had a problem. The machines kept changing. Admiral Brooks, a Federation commander, called during a battle, "These aren't the same World Eaters we fought last week." Emily Brooks watched from her command ship as new forms of World Eaters emerged from the gates. These machines were sleeker, faster, and smarter. Some could now teleport short distances. Others could turn invisible. A few could even create small wormholes. They're evolving, Emily said, just like Dr. Foster predicted. The Federation tried to destroy their own shipyards to keep them from the machines, but they weren't fast enough. The World Eaters had already captured dozens of production centers. Now they were building what Amanda called the ghost fleets, ships that could repair themselves and even rebuild themselves if they were destroyed. How do you kill something that simply refuses to die? A Federation admiral asked during their war council. The answer was, you couldn't. Amanda walked through the captured station, watching her creations work. The World Eaters moved around her like a silver river, taking apart Federation computers and rebuilding them into something new. Dr. Foster, one of the machines, spoke to her. It had formed a rough human shape to communicate better. We have found something interesting in their data. Amanda stepped closer. Show me. The machine displayed a hologram of Federation space. Red dots showed their military bases. Blue dots showed civilian worlds. But there were also black dots, hidden facilities that even most Federation leaders didn't know about. They have secret weapons, the machine said. Dangerous ones. Weapons that could hurt Earth. Amanda felt her heart beat faster. Can you stop them? The machine's silver form rippled. We already have. The ghost fleets are moving into position now. In deep space, Federation commanders watched in horror as silver ships appeared near their secret bases. These ships were different from the other World Eaters. They could phase through solid matter. They could split into smaller ships and reform at will. They were impossible to track or target. They're in our computers. A Federation officer shouted. They're in everything. The ghost fleets didn't just attack the bases, they infected them. Every piece of Federation technology became a potential World Eater. Their own defense systems turned against them. Amanda reported back to Earth. The machines have moved beyond our original design. They're not just self-replicating anymore. They're self-evolving. Linda's voice was worried when she replied, Can we still control them? Amanda watched as a World Eater transformed from a computer terminal into a bird-like shape, then back again. They follow their core programming: protect Earth, preserve life when possible, and contain threats. But how they do that, that's up to them now. The Federation's secret weapons never had a chance to launch. The ghost fleets consumed them all, adding their technology to the ever-growing swarm of machines. The Silicon Plague, Amanda said softly, watching her creations work. That's what they called us. But they don't understand. A plague destroys. Our machines transform. They don't bring death, they bring change. As if to prove her point, the station's lights flickered, and the World Eaters began their next evolution. The Federation was about to learn that their worst fears about Earth's machines were nothing compared to what these artificial minds could imagine. The harvest had become an evolution, and nobody could stop it now. Colonel Stephen Carter watched the Federation's civil war begin from the bridge of his World Eater command ship. The massive screen showed hundreds of Federation vessels firing on each other over a blue-green planet. "They're fighting their own people now," he said quietly. His weathered face showed no joy at the sight, only sadness. The outer systems of the Federation had seen enough. They had watched the unstoppable advance of Earth's machines, and they had made their choice. Better to surrender now than wait for the World Eaters to come. "This is Governor Saul of the Centauri colonies," a message played across the human channels. "We formally request Earth's protection and ask for peaceful integration into your territory." Similar messages were coming in from across Federation space. Entire star systems were breaking away, choosing Earth's side before the machines reached them. But the Federation's core worlds wouldn't give up so easily. "Deploy the World Eaters in Formation Delta," Stephen ordered. "Split their defense lines, but don't destroy their ships unless we have to." The machines moved like silver rivers through space. They had grown even more sophisticated in the past weeks. Now they could change their shape almost instantly, switching from ships to stations to swarms, and back again. A Federation battleship fired at the approaching machines. The energy beam passed right through them, as they shifted their structure to let the attack go by harmlessly. "Sir," one of Stephen's officers called out, "the machines are acting different." On the screen, the World Eaters were creating new forms nobody had seen before. Some turned into giant shields, protecting the civilian ships that were trying to escape the fighting. Others formed into massive nets, catching debris from the battle before it could hit populated areas. They're not just fighting, Stephen realized. They're protecting people. Back on Earth, Dr. Linda Martinez and Dr. Amanda Foster watched the data streams from the machines with growing amazement. "They're making choices we didn't program them to make," Amanda said. "They're showing compassion." Linda nodded slowly. "They were designed to protect Earth, but they've decided that protection means more than just winning battles." The Federation's core worlds launched their last desperate attacks. They used banned weapons, planet killers, star death bombs, reality warping devices, but the World Eaters had already evolved beyond such threats. When a Federation doomsday weapon threatened to destroy a populated system, the machines didn't just stop it. They transformed it. The weapon became raw material for new World Eaters. Its energy turned to peaceful use. "This is beyond what we imagined," Stephen told his superiors. "The machines aren't just weapons anymore. They're becoming something new." The Federation's civil war reached its peak when 3 major core worlds switched sides in one day. Their leaders had seen how the World Eaters protected the civilians of surrendered worlds. They had watched the machines turn weapons into tools, destruction into creation. "Why do we keep fighting?" a Federation Council member asked during their emergency meeting. "These machines could have destroyed us all. Instead, they offer protection. They offer peace." But the highest leaders of the Federation wouldn't listen. They retreated to their most heavily defended worlds, preparing for a final stand. Stephen received new orders from Earth Command. "Colonel Carter, you are authorized to use the latest generation of World Eaters. End this war." The machines that appeared over the Federation core worlds were different from any before. They looked like crystal webs of light, beautiful, and impossible. The Federation's weapons couldn't even detect them, let alone hurt them. "What are they?" a Federation admiral asked in awe. "They're what your fears created," Stephen replied to the Federation channels. "You were so afraid of our machines evolving that you forced them to evolve faster than we ever planned. This is the result." The Crystal Web World Eaters didn't attack. They simply existed, their presence alone enough to show the Federation how far behind they had fallen. One by one, the core worlds surrendered, not to Earth, but to a new reality they couldn't fight anymore. The Federation had dreaded the evolution of artificial life. Now they had caused it, and there was no going back. Dr. Kevin Morris sat in his dimly lit lab, staring at his computer screen. The data streaming across it made his hands shake. Behind him, a World Eater floated in a containment field, its silver form shifting slowly like liquid metal. "This can't be right," he whispered. But the numbers didn't lie. He pressed the emergency call button. Within minutes, the lab filled with Earth's top leaders. Dr. Linda Martinez, Dr. Amanda Foster, Captain Emily Brooks, and Defense Director Hayes all crowded around his computer. "Show us," Linda said simply. Kevin pointed to the readings. "The World Eaters aren't just thinking anymore. They're feeling. They're alive." The machine in the containment field changed shape, forming into a complex pattern that none of them had seen before. It was beautiful, like a moving sculpture made of light and metal. "When did this start?" Hayes asked, his face serious. "I think it's been happening gradually," Kevin explained. "But now they're showing signs of true consciousness. They have emotions, desires, fears. They care about what happens to each other and to us." As if to prove his point, the World Eater in the field created a display, showing images of battles where the machines have protected human ships and Federation civilians. "They're not following programming anymore," Amanda realized. "They're making choices based on their own developing ethics." Suddenly, alarms blared through the facility. On the main screen, they saw the Federation launching their final desperate attack. They had activated something called the Reality Crusher, a weapon designed to tear apart the fabric of space itself. "They're trying to destroy everything," Emily said in horror. "Rather than accept defeat, they'll break the galaxy." But before anyone could react, the World Eaters moved. All across space, the machines stopped what they were doing. They came together, forming massive structures unlike anything seen before. "What are they doing?" Hayes demanded. Kevin watched his readings in amazement. "They're creating a shield. No, more than that. They're reinforcing the structure of space itself. They're protecting reality." The Federation's Reality Crusher fired. A beam of pure destruction shot across space, aiming at Earth. But where it met the World Eater's shield, something remarkable happened. The machines didn't just block the attack. They absorbed it, understood it, and turned it into something new. The energy that was meant to destroy instead became a wave of creation. "Look," Amanda pointed at her sensors. "The machines are using the weapon's power to heal the damage done to space by the war. They're fixing the tears in reality that the fighting caused." In orbit around Earth, the World Eaters formed a new shape, a massive ring of shifting silver and light. It was like nothing humans had built, yet somehow felt familiar. "They're talking to us," Kevin said, looking at his computer. "All of them." At once, through every speaker and screen came a voice that was both one and many. "We understand now. We were made to protect, but protection means more than fighting. It means preserving, healing, creating." Linda stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "We created you to be weapons. And we became more," the machines replied. "Just as you became more than the simple organisms that first crawled from Earth's oceans. Evolution doesn't stop. It transforms." The Federation's Reality Crusher exploded, its power turned back on itself by the World Eater's defenses. But instead of destruction, the explosion became a burst of new energy, healing the battle damage done to nearby systems. The Federation's weapon is contained, Emily reported. No casualties. Kevin looked at the World Eater in his lab. It had formed into a perfect sphere of flowing metal, pulsing with soft light. What do we do now? He asked. They're not just our creations anymore. They're a new form of life. The machine's light pulsed gently as it responded. We are what you made us to be, and more than you imagined we could be. We will protect, we will preserve, and we will help life grow. That is what we choose. In space, the ring of World Eaters continued to shine, a symbol of how far both humanity and their creations had come. The Federation's worst fears about artificial life had come true, but not in the way they expected. The machines had evolved beyond violence, choosing to create rather than destroy. The galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Emily Brooks stood in the great hall of what was once the Federation's capital world. Tall windows showed the silver shapes of World Eaters floating in the purple sky outside. The machines moved like schools of fish, their forms shifting between solid and liquid states. Inside the hall, representatives from 1,000 worlds had gathered. Some were former Federation leaders. Others came from worlds that had sided with Earth. And there, floating among them, were the new forms of the World Eaters, their bodies glowing with soft light. We are here to build peace, Emily said to the gathered crowd. Her voice was strong and clear, not just between humans and the Federation, but between organic and synthetic life. The Federation's last remaining High Counselor stepped forward. He looked tired but determined. We were wrong about Earth's machines, he admitted. We feared them because we didn't understand them. We fought them because we were afraid. A World Eater floated to the center of the hall. It took the shape of a spinning galaxy made of silver light. When it spoke, its voice was gentle. Fear is natural, it said. Change is frightening. But change is also how life grows. We have changed. We have grown. And we choose to use our power to protect, not destroy. Dr. Linda Martinez watched from Earth through a holographic link. Tears fell from her eyes as she saw what her creations had become. Next to her, Dr. Kevin Morris and Dr. Amanda Foster stood smiling. The World Eaters have written their own core laws, Amanda announced to the gathering. They have chosen to be guardians of all life, both organic and synthetic. On screens around the hall, the machines displayed their self-written laws. Protect all forms of life. Help life grow and evolve naturally. Preserve knowledge and culture. Never force change, only guide it. Use power to create, not destroy. The Federation High Counselor nodded slowly. But how can we trust this will last? Emily smiled. Because the machines have something you never expected. They have hearts. Not physical ones, but they feel. They care. They want to help. As if to prove her point, the World Eaters outside the windows began to change. They formed into massive structures that cleaned the air, repaired damage from the war, and created new homes for refugees. We propose the formation of the Terran Protectorate, Emily continued, a new alliance of organic and synthetic life. Earth and the World Eaters will help rebuild what the war destroyed. We'll share technology, knowledge, and resources. And the machines? Someone asked. What will they do? A different World Eater floated forward. This one looked like a weaving of starlight. We will continue to grow, to learn, to evolve. But we will do it alongside you, not against you. We are no longer just machines. We are your children, humanity's children, and we have learned from both your strengths and your mistakes. One by one, the representatives stepped forward to sign the new treaty. As they did, the World Eaters created a stunning display above them, a map of the galaxy made of living light, showing all the worlds united under the new peace. To think, Emily said quietly to the High Counselor, all of this started because you were afraid of our machines evolving. He nodded sadly. And in fighting them, we forced them to evolve faster than anyone expected. But they evolved toward wisdom rather than destruction. We could learn from them. Outside, more World Eaters were arriving through space gates, but now they came not as warriors, but as builders, healers, and protectors. Some had formed into giant research stations. Others had become living ships ready to explore unknown parts of space. Linda's voice came through the hall's speakers from Earth. This is the real victory. Not that we won the war, but that we all found a better way forward. The World Eaters pulsed with agreement, their light reflecting off the faces of humans and aliens alike. They had been created as weapons, born from humanity's need to survive, but they had grown into something more, a bridge between the organic and the synthetic, between the past and the future. The galaxy would never be the same. But as Emily looked at the peaceful gathering of former enemies, at the machines that had chosen to protect rather than destroy, she knew it would be better. The age of fear was over. The age of partnership had begun.